we're recording. We are recording. So I just want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. This is being recorded if you want to look back on it. Robbie will put it somewhere, I'm sure. Robbie, did you want to say anything about how this will happen?
Just logistics for today's meeting. Of course, we've got a combination of technologies, so we do have the video conference unit connecting Yuma, which I see a few people on the screen. They're waving. And then we've got a lecture hall with some people from the PBC there.
There they are.
We also have what's called a Meet Me line, where a number of callers are here, and they'll be coming from this. And so for callers, I do want to acknowledge that if we can't hear something, or you can't hear something, we'll do our best to, quote, repeat the question as needed. And if you're calling from home and there might be children or dogs or other distracting noises, you can just hit *6 to mute your line so you can hear everything, but if you're not asking a question, if noise comes in, and you would hit the same code, the *6 to unmute it. And also callers, it's pretty important that you do not put your call on hold. If you put it on hold, it's going to be hard to reconnect, is what I'm told. So those are the logistics, and they'll be taped. Thanks.
The hold also sometimes there's music.
Oh, yeah.
Not good, not good.
So, President Cheng.
Okay. When Jim and I were here in late August, we promised to come back and talk about the significant issues facing the college moving into the future. And before we begin, I want to thank Deb for stepping in as interim dean and her willingness to stay on with us through this process. I also want to apologize that we didn't get the meeting in December, and December rolls into almost February almost immediately, so I do apologize for that, but we're here. As I see the issues, there's probably 4 areas that we can talk about today. Clearly, the structure of the school and how the college moves forward with all their programs and keeps a healthy, vibrant workforce development, student experience, and budding research agendas blossoming. The second would be, and it's related to structure, is titling of the dean and the dean of nursing positions that we currently have now, and whether we go forward with the same titling or different, and it's related, I think, to structure. The third is obviously timing of that, how we cue things up and put our best face forward for strong candidates. And finally, I'd like to throw in discussions that we've been having around space and seek some thoughts on the future needs of the school, the current needs, the future needs in an hour, and the future needs as the programs develop and as we envision a strong, vibrant college. So those are really the 4 things that I'd like to get out of our discussion, and there have been discussions among you between the provost and I, and Deb and Jim and I, but we don't have a set model. I want to, before I say yes or no to any options, really hear from you what you think your field, where you think your field is going, how you think we can position ourselves as strong as possible going into the future, how we can support strong undergraduate programs, growing master's programs, and a research agenda with the staffing and the space that we have. And and then leave this meeting with at least some understanding of what the pros and cons are for different models. So with that, Jim, if you'd like to add something, or Deb, and then we can open it up for a dialogue.
I think you laid out the main questions. Did you want to chat a bit about PBC, or is that?
Well, clearly, UMA, PBC are part of that. We've got our cohorts of physical therapy and a launch of our Masters of Athletic Training in that location. When we're done, we will have almost 400 students engaged in learning in those 4 programs at the PBC, and opportunities for us to think about other programs that would complement U of A and ASU offerings there. And we're seeing that more and more we need attention to that program. Right now, the dean, the associate deans, and Christy Farley are pulling that together with the chairs of the departments. Long term, I'd like to see someone dedicated to the PBC, someone on the ground that is working in a capacity of a director, a campus director, or associate dean. Again, titling, structure are important, and so I'm glad that we've got about 8 people on the site at the PBC, and a couple people here. So I think you've got some ideas as well. But communication, attention to program detail, all those things are really important as we get the size that we are. We're building out. We have extra dollars left. Huh, who'd think of that? But we do, and we're working through some final build out. And again, having someone there all the time could be a real bonus for us. We have a lot of extended sites, particularly in our nursing program. We have a lot of demand for your programs statewide, and I'm glad to see that the UMA campus is also represented. So with that, thanks Jim for bringing up PBC, because that was on our notes and we wanted to make sure we had that. Okay.
This is just a clarification point. I didn't think there was anything with ASU at PBC.
ASU has programming across the street. Their College of Education, their Future Arizona programs, they have health programs, their nursing program is downtown. So there's a lot of things going on around that, and they have a joint research building with U of A on the campus. Anything else that
No, I think you got it.
Yes.
Just to frame, clearly it seems like starting with structure is maybe start with a discussion about structure, because that'll dictate, titles and timing. But is it safe to say right now 3 different things have been thrown out as far as ideas of structure? Number 1 is keeping the structure relatively the same, however, 1 dean only, but the dean of the college must be a nurse. A second model that's been thrown out there has been to separate out and have nursing become its own college. These are just things that in discussions, and then the College of Health and Human Services be its own college, each with its own dean. And then the third model is keep it roughly the same structure, however, dean of the college, and then a program director or there's some kind of leader who knows what the title is of the School of Nursing. Those are 3 that we've kind of had thrown around here. Are there any other ideas out there that?
Well, I haven't had any ideas. Those things have their status quo as well. And the PBC is floating into my office, so there's about 5 different things that are.
I mean, one other one I've heard, and I don't, but in discussions with departments where it came up, is what is that that you have a dean and the dean has to be a nurse.
Yeah.
Right.
So you guys have had hallway conversations around some of this. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come in to Jim or to the dean. So what do you think?
Well, so a question in terms of I mean, my question has always been in terms of a college of nursing, is that even a realistic proposal, given that, you know, we went through this restructuring some years ago and, you know, reduced the number of colleges? I mean, is in adding another college even something that, you know, would be considered exactly?
I think today, we should keep it on the agenda, but you raise some very good points. We have other schools within colleges on campus, and my concern is, you know, there would be a Me Too. We have a strong hotel and restaurant management. We have a strong school of forestry. They are continuing to thrive in a college environment, and it has not hurt their national reputation. So I would, I have to weigh all that. Yeah.
So, I don't know if you can look at me.
Yes.
I'm speaking on behalf of Debbie Craig, who might be on the meeting line, so if she is, she can tune in and speak up if she needs to.
Okay, and who are you?
I'm Glenn
Glenn.
Edgerton, and I'm in athletic training. And I just wanted to respond to the keeping things status quo and having our dean be a nurse. My issue, now that Deb has brought it to my attention, which it wasn't yesterday, but it makes perfect sense, is that if we stay with the status quo and our dean has to be a nurse, then I will never be dean of this college, nor will anybody in health sciences, nor will anybody in dental hygiene, nor will anybody in the PA program, nor no one else in this college has any chance for growth. Steve Palmer will be the associate dean until he says, I'm done with this, but he'll never be the dean of this college if it has to be a nurse. And so, obviously, that's a bit of a problem. As far as if you come to this campus thinking, well, you know, I've been here for 20 years, and I'd like to progress up to being an associate dean, and then a dean, and then a provost, and then
Don't do it. Don't do it.
But however, that whole situation is completely not possible if I have to be a nurse to be the dean of this college. So staying at the status quo and having a nurse be our dean, to me, is completely out of the question.
We have an accelerated program. I just
Just a comment. I mean, you know, in my mind, I think the status quo and the dean having to be the nurse are two different things, right? Because you could have an executive dean who's a nurse and a director of the school of nursing.
Oh, sure. I mean, if we keep
Yeah.
it the status quo and we have to have some nurse on staff as an associate dean or dean, that's great, as long as there's opportunity for the rest of us to have the opportunity to lead in some capacity.
That hadn't come to you know, our conversation, so that's good.
Good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my main goal is, I've been in all different arrangements within the school, like here, I was at a separate university where we had our own college. My thing is that.
And you're a nurse?
I'm at Peckers from occupational therapy. Okay, and apologize for that. One of the things I think that's most important, having done searches for health sciences deans, this would be the first one I've ever been around that a nurse in this arrangement here that might be, is in health sciences, and I can't speak for nursing, there is a limited pool, somewhat cronyism in allied health that does not necessarily lend itself to bringing the kind of person that I would like to see here. But at the same time, if we can open up the search to the greatest breadth of people that might come in here, we probably have an opportunity here to really, I mean, the whole state is talking health sciences, I mean, what's going on in the PBC. I want to get the best person here, and I want the best person to be the leader, the visionary, to interface with you and your visions on behalf of the school. And I'm worried that if it gets discipline specific, not only might we run into what's happening, it was just mentioned, but more importantly, we may not be able to attract the kind of person to apply for us even to consider.
I'm not sure who's first, but let's go here and here.
Elise Lindstedt, Communication Sciences and Disorders.
See, she's
So-
a communication person. She.
So, to expand even on that, I would not even, not only would I not limit it to one specific discipline, but I would not even limit it to any of the disciplines within our college. For example, I could imagine somebody who would be very qualified and very appropriate coming from biological sciences, which has a strong underpinning for all of our disciplines. This college is really changing right now, and we are now changing the trajectory. And I'm just saying that we need to have the best person who can lead us into the areas and the things that have been set as our goals and what you vision as the
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
trajectory.
someone on the telephone has their phone not muted, and it's really, we can't hear anything.
Okay.
Maybe it's us.
You're talking about, well, the telephone is separate from this.
No, that was Lonnie.
That was Lonnie.
That was
Oh, Lonnie. Got it.
I think they just muted it for us. Sorry to interrupt, but thank you. We really
Thanks.
want to hear it.
So I'm hearing some patterns. The strongest person, discipline shouldn't matter. You really want someone who can embrace the vision for the future. Over here.
I'm Rick Dean, I'm Chair of the Division Assistant, and I'm at the PBC. And my concern about having nursing being designated as the dean of the college is nursing only, and I'm addressing just that small possibility. And I'm only viewing it from the provincial viewpoint of PBC, so that's my limitations. But my concern is that would make CHHS, from leadership viewpoint, a de facto college of nursing. And in PBC, the medical school sort of runs the show at PBC in reality. They run most of the facilities. They have a less than ideal relationship with their own nursing college at University of Arizona.
Shocking.
And as would be expected of everyone in the country, and they don't have a good relationship with ASU's School of Health Solutions for all the same reasons, for whatever. And I'm concerned that we would move from a cooperative relationship into an antagonistic relationship from just having made that one move without any fault of any individuals involved with it.
I'm Dawn Rivas from nursing. So my concern, I agree with getting the best possible person, but then in nursing, we're going to get the least, not a good person possibly, because they're going to be now the chair of nursing. And we may not get really good candidates if they come in and they're not the dean and they're just a chair. So, it's kind of, yeah.
Can I say something? The status quo is not necessarily the dean of the college being a nurse. The status quo is that there's an executive dean and there's a dean of nursing. That's the status quo. And I think that needs to be clear. Because this conversation seems to be about nursing having to be the dean of the college, and I'm not even sure that that's necessarily on the table, because that would just piss everybody off. Clearly.
And we do that every day without deliberate. We don't have to be deliberate. So I agree with Deb. Status quo is not the dean needs to be a nurse. But that was one option that was floated as early as last summer. So it's good that we talk about it, but again, we're not moving in any direction. Here.
Tim Barrett, Health Sciences. So are decisions about any structure going to be financial decisions or pedagogical decisions?
Structure should follow strategy. I'm a management PhD, and I read Chandler like a lot of other people did. I think we have to determine what the best structure is given where this college wants to go. Financial constraints are obviously there. So, you know, a separation, for example, of the nursing into their own college, what does that mean for the rest of the health sciences college? Could we afford it? Would there be shared services that many universities are moving to anyway, taking place? What really are the issues around that? And how much research has gone into getting the best person and what title needs to be to get the best person? I think that's awesome. So, do you have a structure in mind that's more expensive than we can handle?
No, the question was really meant to just ask, you know, what is the preface of all of this? What is the assumption? You know, why are we having this conversation about structure?
Yeah. I think it's really about the concern about needing to go out and get started and making sure that we have a good conversation around titling and around structure so that we don't put an ad in and then change our mind and then bring someone into a different situation.
A little bit of background that some of you may not know. Last year we had an active search for Dean of the School of Nursing. And all the candidates pulled out. And one of the reasons that they voiced was that the reporting structure, a dean reporting to an executive dean, was uncomfortable. So that's where this conversation, I think, started.
Okay. Oh, we're round two, but, okay.
On the topic of titling, I went and looked at all of our comparator institutions, and the most common title was director. There was one director and associate dean, and there was one dean. So, and there were lots of interims in all of this. Which told me that this issue is not just among, you know, NAU. So, but I just, it's useful to know that there's other institutions that are using titling that somehow is working, I guess, at some level, or, yeah.
Is
So,
that director or executive director?
no, it would be director in a college, director of a school in a college. So, and then again, there was one that was director and associate dean in the college.
On the phone?
No, question for myself. I wanted to include, we heard this town hall meeting was predominantly about restructuring the college. So on behalf of staff, I'm curious to clarify the assumption. Does that mean we're going to talk about the top administration, the dean, associate dean, you know, all the things we're talking about now, and then anything from that might impact staff, or are we looking at restructuring staff simultaneously or separately? So I just want to factor in how does staff restructuring play out?
I don't have an answer for that. Deb nor Jim has brought that up. Throughout the campus, however, we are looking at structures for staffing relative to marketing, communications, IT, advising, because we've got more students and no more money for more staff, and so we have to look at doing things differently. And within the colleges, I know all the deans are also looking at ways that we can share services among departments and try to use technology in a way to lessen the load of some of the paperwork of the staff. And that's not an easy fix at all. So that has not come up, but I'm glad that you mentioned it because I would think that there are some concerns.
I just to piggyback, I don't want anybody here to think that there's some sort of conversations going on between me and Rita about restructuring you and pulling you apart. And this is, I mean, this is really tell us what you're thinking. I mean, the only reason this is even discussed is because of the challenges you've had in recruiting in the current structure. And so I think we just want to get feedback from you on how best to move forward.
I just want to acknowledge we lost PBC. So
Oh,
Jason, are you able to call PBC again? We've lost our connection with the Phoenix Biomedical Campus.
I am recalling as we speak.
Thank you.
Okay, right here.
Denise Helm, Department of Dental Hygiene. And the question I had is around the big push with research and external funding for research. And I'm wondering if there's been any consideration for what structure would bring the best opportunity for external funding to the institution. And part of the reason that I asked this question is I'm currently a PI on a grant through HRSA. And I believe that within 4 years, if this was a college of nursing and health professions, or if it was a college of nursing, it would greatly jeopardize our ability to be refunded. So I'm wondering if there's other situations and if we've carefully looked at what the best structure for funding would be for this college.
That's a good point. I have never found that the way that we organize our academic programs necessarily is a barrier to funding, but we've got it on the list to make sure.
It might be more of a question for Deb and her perspective. Now she may be the only one who can have this one. Is the status quo, where you have the existing dean of nursing kind of reporting to an executive dean, has some nuances to it. It's could have been doing that for years. Does that work and meet the needs of the School of Nursing with that kind of structure? Now that you've had 7 months of seeing the other perspective of having to play a bigger role?
Well, I never had any trouble with the structure, but I also knew when I came that the Dean of Nursing wasn't a real dean job, and I was okay with that. Clearly, other people have not been okay with that. And so, you know, doing this, and you know, Sally's been doing the nursing piece of it, most of it, and there's a lot to be done in nursing, I can tell you, because nursing is so complex and we have so many different programs and so many different places across the state that it's just complex in and of itself. And so in speaking to the size of small colleges and forestry, and nursing has between 18 and 2,100 students, depending on what you look at, which data that you look at. And so we are obviously bigger than HRM or forestry or any of those. And the College of Health and Human Service is not the smallest college on campus anymore. We now have, I think it's 3,700 students among all the programs. And we used to be considered the smallest, but I know business only has 31 or 3,200, so we are bigger than business. And that includes HRM in there. So I'm proud to say that. We have really, really grown. And that's part of this is growing pains, because we've more than doubled in the last 5 years. So
Deb has a point, and I'd just like to add to that. The difficulty from Jim and my perspective is advertising for an executive dean who really is a dean, who sits at the table with the deans, has no additional authority on the campus than a dean. Advertising a dean that is really treated like a director. And then have people come to campus and turn us down because it's not the job they thought it was. So we have to get this figured out so that we can have truth in advertising and then treat people in the appropriate way. I think there was here a new one, and then here and here. Oh.
Laura Bounds from Health Sciences. So as far as the financial perspective, it seems like the status quo with having the Dean of Nursing and the Executive Dean of the current college, that if you were to split it out into a College of Nursing and the College of Health and Human Services, that the financial savings really isn't there. It would kind of stay the same. But I also wonder if that wouldn't not only help your recruiting of a dean, because then they'd be a real dean, and it would make you position that could just be a regular dean and kind of straightens out some of those problems as well.
Yes.
Doug Sutton in nursing. I have a little bit of a background with this one in Florida, and actually found the job at NAU. I was out here for something else and took it back to her office in Boca and said, look, this university is really pretty up there.
Hey, thank you for doing that.
Well, because she looked at it and she said, I'm not going to go from an associate dean or an assistant dean of undergraduate nursing to a director. That would be a step down. Now, that was a first impression, you know, just a initial, here's the ad, look at this, I was just there, it's a really pretty school, to, it's like, And I remember that conversation, and then it transitioned, and you guys know the history of how that transitioned. I don't, I was still in Boca, where it's warm. But it, you know, it morphed, and then it became a more interesting prospect, and it's turned in, 7 or 8 years later. But it's the same thing. I mean, it's not a new story, as we can tell. So I think also we have to remember that as part of this component as well. And I hear everybody doing that. The other thing is, I wonder, and maybe everyone knows, the comment that the executive dean, or whatever it is, has to be a nurse is mandated by accreditation. It's not that nursing is saying that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whoever's over the nursing program, whatever title that is, has to obviously be a nurse. Yeah. And that's where that comes from. So that's if anyone's wondering, well, why does it have to be a nurse? Well, that's where that comes from. And it may be the same with other programs, I'm not sure.
And I did see the list of schools that have directors versus deans versus associate deans in charge of nursing. And it seemed like a dean, a director, they were about 50-50 split there. So, but I appreciate your comments that it might not be as appealing. There was something over here. Okay.
So it's Len again. And this is going to be, ignorance is bliss comment. So it's going to kind of go back to our first question of the day. What is the issue or problem or concern or whatever about having the College of Nursing and the College of Health and Human Services? Because if I hear Deb correctly, 2,800 students in the College of Nursing. 21. And then that obviously would be subtracted from here, right? Which would put us down to 21.
Yeah, it's about half.
It would be about the same size in the college, which sounds like an appropriate size. What is the snafu with just having a College of Nursing and a College of Health and Human Services?
It becomes a very small college.
Okay.
My question is, what is health sciences interactions with nursing that makes it stronger to be together? There is some strength in size, and so budget-wise, attention-wise, from the president and the provost. So there are some pros and cons. So right here.
For head nursing, just to piggyback on that, if it's possible to do a College of Nursing, but to look at economies of scale, some colleges of nursing in other schools, like in Texas, the College of Nursing runs the health clinics, all of the student health services. So could that be added potentially to a College of Nursing, which would help at least in economy, make it a little larger? But just to think out of the box with who else would fit with a College of Nursing. What other service could a College of Nursing give both the university and the community?
Interesting. Behind?
Mike Lebeck, Program Director of Physical Therapy here in Flagstaff. So my comments on a different topic, which I don't know if that's maybe welcome or derailed, but growth. Deb mentioned growth, and we've had a lot of growth, and there's been some exciting opportunities associated with that. I brought this up with the provost when he came and met with our department, and I don't know if I can speak for all disciplines with this, but I've heard some similar conversations in that, as we grow, we've been growing obviously a lot in physical therapy the last few years. We're growing in athletic training and a little bit everywhere. there's always space limitations, and then of course faculty and other resources. But the one that I just wanted to kind of put on the radar, of course, is all of our students have to do clinical rotations, internships, and those types of things. And I'm just wondering from higher administrative perspective, how those are considered and into the strategies of growth, because there's caps on where we can send our students when they get out there. There's caps on the clinical structures to manage them, and then of course the faculty that have to track them as they go along, and that just increases faculty workload, which takes away from some of the other areas of teaching and scholarship and all those types of things. So wondering if that's an issue across the college and other disciplines, and then any thoughts that you have on that.
The clinical rotations and the accreditation requirements of faculty oversight to students, are well established in most of your programs, and we're well aware of that. I know that the national conversations are also about how financially constraining those are, and how different models might be considered to have the same quality of experience and with less constraints. I don't know where those conversations are today, but I know that when I was in Illinois, we were well aware of those conversations. What I would say is that I think some of the programs that don't have that oversight, or other programs that can complement modest growth in high demand areas, like your discussions around nutrition, I think are going to be really important to us. Some of the master's programs, the degree completion programs that are well established in nursing could be emulated in some of the other health sciences. We're going into Prescott Valley because they're asking for more degree completion on top of some of the community college prep programs. So I think we just have to look at what is the next complement of programs to round out the college. And in my thoughts, if nursing was separate, what would the College of Health Sciences look like? And is it strong enough and vibrant enough to move forward without that close association to some of the really innovative things that have been done in nursing under Deb's leadership?
This is related, but the clinical aspect dictates some kind of saturation or limit. I guess my thought is, with the trajectory of where our college was 8 years ago, when Deb and I started, to now, are we envisioning something that's going to take care of now, or are we actually looking at really where we're going to be, so we don't fix now and then find that the saturation or the dynamics are an inappropriate fit 4 or 5 years from now?
I think that's a great comment, because we have to be looking into the future. That's why the leadership is so critical, because we need a strong leadership team that can stay abreast of the changing workforce needs in healthcare, and also the changing expectations of NAU in general, and linking strong applied research and outreach to the communities, not only in our undergraduate programs, but in growing master's and doctoral and in our research labs. And we are coming of age in that way. It's not a threat to our historical core attention to our student needs. It's really about the fact that we are coming of age as an institution, and we're ready to take on more complex structures and more complex activities.
I just had a random thought.
Do tell.
Flight of ideas, so Jason, you know what that means. He's our psych person. But, if the college needed to be bigger and we're looking at restructure, what other health occupations exist on this campus that are in different colleges. I mean, that's just a random thought that, you know, exercise science used to be in our college. And for, I guess, way before my time, for political reasons or whatever, it got moved out.
I always think that it's here.
But it's just an idea of what related health professions might be out there that would fit well with this college to make it, let's say we split nursing out, to make it bigger. Just a thought.
Because it's now Stephens, and Stephens is huge.
And Stephens is huge, right.
There's a strong connection to biology, but there's also a strong connection to the work that you do.
And especially since health sciences is looking for accreditation for our fitness wellness, which is accredited by the same people that accredit exercise science. So that's just one, and there may be others. I don't want to necessarily say psychology, but
I was going to reinforce psychology because of the Alliance of Occupational Therapy, and that I really miss, I'm going over to ASU all the time to look for some of those alliances, or coming up here, but it's difficult in space. There is a workforce study group that is meeting very actively in between Tucson and Phoenix. And I know that several of us were there, and they have data about how they want to move education forward to better meet the needs of the citizens. And it might be interesting to look at that report and where they're emerging and talk with them, because we had administration from ASU and UA in the first meeting that we went to, and it'd be interesting to pull that data forward, because I think there are some clear gaps that NAU could bring in very nicely also within the sector. And but it's coming, you know, out of those, and I would invite us to look, and I can get you that lead, because they are looking very specifically at workforce issues. And I know the Senate is looking at how to open up funding to bring some critical services here as we move into the new healthcare system that we have ability to provide, but we have not had opportunities that have been funding. So there's a synergy, and I know that you've been quite often down in the legislature, but from the healthcare committee, they may have some very strong perspectives of people's needs that are not being met. And we could forge into that area.
I suggest that part of the problem with finding leadership is not the title. It may be, but maybe there's just a shortage overall of people that are qualified or trained to be leaders in health professions, and maybe this is an opportunity for us to have a program to prepare more healthcare providers for leadership.
I would say, you know, and people that want to do it because they don't necessarily envision that the jobs are all that great. I mean, I think that
finding a leader. I don't think it's the title. That maybe if we called it the dean, maybe we could have had a better chance maybe to apply. I don't know. And we also, by accreditation, are required to have a leader that's a delegate. So I don't think that's unique to nursing.
Just another brainstorm of this brainstorm as much as just input. I know biology is, it's a department, but it's not a school, but it's incredibly large. And just in context of what Deb was saying as far as what can we maybe look at the whole university and balance, and this is just my idea, taking the biology classes as the prereq for nursing and other areas and nutrition. Is there a part of biology that could be split out as far as basic foundational that could be brought into College of Health and Human Services, and then the part that's actually, you know, majors and such stay within its existing college? So there's crossover already, but again, the incredibly large size of that department and trying to balance it, just throw that out there. Is there a way to have biology specific, you know, to break that into two pathways of biology and have some of it be within our college?
I would have to shoot myself. Simply because
you're interim, you don't have to worry.
That's right. The amount of students that take Bio 181, 201, and 202 and all the labs that go with that. I know,
That's my point.
talking to, yeah, I wouldn't want to be having to worry about that.
No, but that's my point. That might make our College of Nursing and College of Health Professions be a larger entity, or the combination, and the college that it's part of. I'm sorry, I don't know, but anyway.
I think at this time, exercise science is part of biology.
Right.
So that's a great example. I think on the research side, the muscle contraction work, the pop health, and the work that we're doing in the Cancer Research Partnership, all of those things, fortunately, on the research side, we're seeing interdisciplinarity, we're seeing connections across colleges, but we have to foster that. And then what does that mean to our programming that we offer to students? Are students able to get that same interdisciplinarity without a structural change? That's really a good question.
I was going to say, we have a lot to offer to an interdisciplinary core curriculum. And having been at a prior university where we experienced peaks and troughs in our professional programs, one of the things that brought us into conversations and interprofessional work was because we started engaging in the core curriculum. So some of the things like that we could offer, like disabilities and ethics in response to that. As occupational therapists and physical therapists, we could be in that, and that allowed us, and I don't know if this has ever been an issue here, it allowed us to soften some of those peaks and troughs, because we were not only engaged in education, but we were working with students. It also became a recruiting issue. So sometimes being our own little school, which I call, or our school or dean or whatever, has this moat around it that as long as you're a professional, there's kind of a different fluence. You know, I've talked to psychology and they're swamped with the basic education. There's some things though that we would be natural to be in there working with them around core curriculum, but I don't see us delivering that. So I would like to put on the table, is there a benefit of being, you know, layered professional programs within what I call the core dynamics versus isolated as we are?
Well, it sounds like I'm trying to wrap things up here together. Really, we're talking about now the current structure isn't going to work. The title of the nursing dean probably isn't going to work, so that's probably off the table. The other one that's really gone off the table is keeping it as is with the college leader being a nurse. That's off the table, so we don't have to worry about those. I mean, nothing's off the table, but it sounds like we're really now down to talking about, are we one college, or are we separating out, having nursing its own separate college as well, and then the rest of the colleges, health and human services or health sciences. Trying to think of some benefits to that. I think from a funding perspective, I did call some folks that are much smarter than I am, particularly around grants. One person commented that if nursing was in its own college, she thought that nursing might be able to more easily secure some NIH funding, particularly through the nursing funding source. That was one thing I'd heard. Another person I spoke with said, you know, as far as the interdisciplinary funding and trying to go across disciplines, that the structure of a university and a college really doesn't matter. It's more of the disciplines that are involved in projects that would lead to maybe improved funding. And now we're looking across campus, or universities, of course, too. So that's just one thing. I'm trying to think of benefits of why to separate nursing versus keep together. One thought I had was in our college strategic plan, we do mention interprofessional education. So going back to some of what Pat had mentioned, a lot of the disciplines have interprofessional education in their own disciplinary standards. Yet I'm wondering, it's really, our chances of doing a lot with it now are slim in one college. But if we separate out, are the odds of actually doing some of these things, then it seems like the health field is moving more towards interprofessional practice. With the odds of us really doing something that is at the forefront of that, and we're already kind of behind, do those chances go to nil if we do separate out? Because it's hard enough to do it now. So just trying to think some thoughts, some benefits and drawbacks to separating the remaining.
I think you've got maybe the direct question of the day: are you stronger together, or are you stronger separate? And the issues that you described with biology or psychology, would they be the same issues then you would be describing between nursing and the rest of health science? Because structure does matter.
On that very topic, with all respect to Glenn and anybody that might want to be a dean, not me, is there a way to reconcile that by having a restructuring so that we're the College of Nursing and Health Professions, which of course would acknowledge a dean of nursing, a nurse being the dean, but it would still keep the college together. It would, I mean, everything has a cost benefit, win-lose, and so I acknowledge how that would limit something that was mentioned earlier, but what is the best benefit? So that would be a way of having us stay as one college, but deal with some of the other things that I've heard. And it's just, I guess I hadn't heard that voiced, but I've heard it in hallway conversations. So I just wanted that on the table for transparency.
Looking down the road, we talked about, I mentioned nutrition and complimented you on your planning for nutrition. People have told me that that's something that we absolutely need, and we need a cultural aspect of that and a prevention aspect of that, and it sounds like your curriculum planning, both at the undergraduate and master's, would get that done and really be a contribution to the workforce needs, and if we do it right, can really also enhance our research agenda. We talked about exercise science and why it was here and not here, and then what we should be doing in the future as an open question. What other kinds of things are on the agenda in health sciences that we should consider as we are thinking about the qualities of a leader?
Deb, do you want to talk about the doctoral program you're doing with Karen?
Yeah, sort of. The college is looking at a combined PhD program with SBS. And I can't remember, do you remember the title, Steve? You were in on the original planning.
Oh, it's this long.
Yeah,
It's
it
huge.
doesn't have a nice acronym either.
No, there's no acronym for it. It is, crap, I can't remember.
It's around developing health scientists, though.
It is about developing health scientists, researchers in the health professions and the health sciences.
Somewhat of a health disparities.
Yeah, it had a health disparity. There were so many folks in that it was.
So early stage of development.
Very
So it could be a PhD in interdisciplinary health sciences or something
Yes.
like
Yeah,
that.
that sounds right.
That would be the nice short way.
So that students who see it say, oh yeah, maybe I could do that.
With a research focus.
Which would then draw a closer association of colleagues across campus. Yes, Julie.
Hi, Julie Goldman, health scientist. One of the things that we discovered as we were writing our center grant is that we have a lack of expertise in health policy and health economics on this campus. And we actually partnered with U of A to help us write that section of our proposal. But it may just be finding other people in the business school that we don't know about right now. But really, that was an area that really we need to look more closely at as we move forward in the college.
My experience with health sciences, colleges of nursing, are also the importance of having a breadth of programs so that students that come in thinking they want to major in nursing or they want to major in a particular field and find out that either the science gets them or they just don't really like the interaction with patients. That there are other fields for them, and so having that breadth of programs so that there is a positive move forward rather than a disappointment and leaving the institution is really important.
And I think our advisors do a really good job from day one. When students declare nursing as their major when they're freshmen, And Chris, you can probably speak to this better than I do, but I know that they're told that, you know, you better get good grades in your sciences, and here are some other options in health sciences, fitness, wellness, public health, and they get that right from the get-go. Is that not right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So health economics, health policy, under a health management type of
We don't
umbrella?
have that, but we could. We don't have any of those programs.
Yeah.
But knowing the odds are 1 in 5, you're actually going to get into nursing school when you apply, and even worse than that when you come in. Yeah, to not lose students, we definitely try that.
Good. There was a
Roger, are you working on that? Health policy, health economics.
Julie,
I
want
have
to
one
finish?
here
Yeah.
too. The other thing is we partnered with the informatics group, and they were wonderful, and that's a growing program, of course, on campus, and several of the people focus more on health informatics. So
Yeah.
I think we really need to bring them more into our.
And they're at the graduate level, and having a sampling of that at the undergraduate could then encourage students to stay on for a master's in informatics.
Do you consider growth of this, whatever the school, growth of them, as important to where you want to go with the university? Or are you feeling like it's more we need to build up with what we've got? I say that because there's two ways to go, like at the PBC, is to continue to develop independent programs that that work, and then you have to fund them up, faculty, blah, 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 blah. Or there are some of us that have opportunities that we may be able to piggyback other types of programs on our existing, which means we could increase student size with a relatively small faculty and use capacity that we have built.
Bingo.
And, okay, so I talked yesterday with Deb about they're moving to a Bachelor's of Science of Occupational Therapy Associates. We have no way to deal with, they're all privates here in town.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a possibility? And we then struggle with what would we need? Well, I'm already in existence. We just, so I think that's one of the things is if we're going to continue to grow in students, where is that growth going to be in brand new opportunities or possibly layering?
And that's an easier conversation when you don't have classes at capacity.
Yeah.
Because then you can pull together different combinations of classes and boost your enrollment with the very little marginal cost.
Right.
We are not at that stage in our growth, but it's still a really important strategy to use because you do have then people going out to the workforce with some experience. And enough to take them to a master's program should they stay or come back. I think the other is that we will still see growth in the demand for our programs in Arizona. We are at the bottom of states where students transition from high school to college. Average across the country is 60%. We're at 49, I think. So we have a lot of work to do to get students prepped to go to college and then encouraged to go to college. The other is that we still have a growing population, even though that some of the traditional students in high schools are not growing. There is still a growing overall population. So our programs, both at the transfer level and at the master's level, are going to be important strategies for us. Over here.
I have just a smart aleck comment. I love all this talk about growth and new programs, but one of the items on your list will be significantly impacted if we get all these new programs, and that's space.
Yeah. The fourth silent you are engaged in the Performance Center conversation with athletics. And last night, the director of athletics asked me if nutrition might be an area that could be aligned with that because they thought that it was so connected to the athletic performance as well as the interests of some of their donors. So I think that we need to look for space. We need to look for state-of-the-art laboratory space. We are building out in Phoenix, and we'll continue to look for those synergies. So yes, it's not smart aleck, but it sure is a worry.
Yeah, I want to revisit the two college, one college issue, and somewhat is what's your measuring stick. And as I think of departments and numbers of students, I'd also like to question that the quantity of research and just the fact that we're getting a few multi-million-dollar grants, that the CARE program is finishing its 5 years, but that's a multi-million-dollar center. And then the health equity research thing is just getting off the ground, and whether it's going to be a center or not, I don't think that it's actually a measurement of how many more students, but it's still part of the university's mission, I would think, for research. So again, that's another way to measure how big are we to justify one or two. So that's a comment I make. And logistically, I just want to be sure, is there anybody on the phone or at PBC or UMA that hasn't had a chance to chime in because we're not giving you that opportunity? Or I just want to make that comment.
Hi.
Who's this?
You know, this is Sonia Pedersen. Thank you. No, I'm good. You're asking all the good questions. This is Joanne in Tucson.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi, I'm good.
All right. Well, I would be most interested if somebody wasn't
We're
good.
good too.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
So in regards to the timing of the new dean, so if we can't decide what our college structure is going to be, that's our new dean. Because Deb's only here for another year, or is that going to morph into 2 or 3?
No.
That's due to my strategy.
There is some chains in my office.
Seriously, we would like to be able to make a decision within the next month, pull together a search committee and get started so that we have an early start on any of the traditional cycles for people considering positions, and getting an ad out in the summer, getting early falls, jump started, rather than wait until February or March when everybody else has already made a decision and who's left on the market is not the strongest candidate. Not that, you know, I was hired in March. So was Jim. Jim was hired in April. I was hired in April. You know what I mean. All of us. So the short answer is we'd like to get aggressive and get going and have input on all these issues before we make any decision. I've heard a lot of good things today.
What's the mechanism then? This is an input thing. Is there a next step, or is this, you know, at top administration's purview, or will there be? I mean, how will this unfold after today's meeting? If there's any vision.
I think the three of us will be meeting, absorbing. Jim's taking notes. We'll be absorbing this, looking at pros and cons. We'll need to make a decision. You know, I'll be the final decision maker, but the input from this discussion and the input and the reflection from both Deb and Jim will be really important. Yes.
Would you mind giving those who could not be here the opportunity to provide input? Because we have a couple of faculty who are teaching right now and couldn't be here and they'd like to give input. Would there be the possibility of setting up a site where, in the same vein that we did for the provost position, where faculty who couldn't be here could just provide input? I would want to include them. I know that they wanted to be here and couldn't.
I would extend that to any of the shy people who are here as well, who haven't voiced some thoughts that that they think are important, but maybe what did you call it? It was a snarky, or what was that?
Smart aleck.
Smart aleck, yeah. I'll take it smart aleck, it's okay.
We are
Yeah,
ready.
we can do that pretty easily. We'll put something up on the provost area and just ask for any thoughts over the, maybe next week, so that by next Friday we have input. I think right here first.
I was just going to say, is the recording of today's meeting going to be available to the people that weren't able to?
I think that was the intent, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to do it just in case, so we'll
Yeah.
So
make that
then there could
available.
be like a blog associated with
Right,
that?
right. We'll put that out and have it under the Louis, so that it's not out there in the public, but it's on a page that you guys can get to. Maybe a Blackboard page or something, right?
Yeah, I've not done it before, so
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
I think we can do something like that.
Though not appropriate probably right now, I would like to have a conversation about the vision that the school would have and you would have for the school before we start. We talked about problem solving. Is there a need for one or two, or how are we going to do that? But having done interviews both at the dean level as well to think about doing that, but also doing this facility here is a detraction to the kinds of dynamics that are going on in all the other health science schools. I've been much more aware, and I know that the prior dean, I believe, was brought in with the idea of getting new facilities, and I understand the zeitgeist of the time influenced, but I think we need to have something to entice, or if it's not space, if it's the constant issues we've got here, what are we doing to entice someone forward? Because the competition is very state of the art out there. More what you see in the PPC is what a lot of deans are looking at, or know that they can be part of developing. So I just put that as what are we going to do to attract the kind of person into the system that we've got here?
And that was comments by the candidates that interviewed for the Dean of Nursing last year. Those were comments that they both made.
I would say that we've just touched the surface, and we've talked about structure and titling, but it really is much more about the excitement about the role that somebody would have. Why would you come to some place that the upper administration wasn't behind and wanting to push forward? I do think the PBC is a huge opportunity for us in finding an associate dean role or some kind of director role reporting into the college dean rather than outside would be important. But I think there are other aspects of a vision. Now, most of the time that is articulated in the prospectus. And so we need to get going on that too. And I hope that you've had these conversations internal about where you want to go. And Jim and I need to see that so that we can embrace it and move forward. But you're absolutely right. And that's why that performance center concept here on campus could be another spectacular ad. I don't know what you do with this building. Tear it down. Both of them. Got it? Yeah.
We have enough duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape.
I just want to thank you for coming over and hearing everybody's perspective. That really is helpful.
Well, I think we
get a
share.
bigger perspective.
I mean, we share wanting to get the very best people. And I think I've been very transparent in wanting to grow our programs, wanting to move more into our graduate programs and add that research vibrancy that is so important to attracting high-achieving students into the future. So you're doing what you need to do. We just have to figure out what's next. Yes?
Sorry, I just have one more comment about the issue of space. That NAU has done a nice job of attracting research-intensive faculty from other universities, okay? And we must all know and recognize that other universities are doing the same thing. So for those of us who have, for the faculty that we have who are really stepping out onto the national scene and are getting some attention, we need to make sure that they have the resources and the the promise and can exercise their intellect and so forth and carry on their agendas, because they could be, there's, the other universities are doing it as well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, and that's a campus-wide conversation, but also a college conversation around workload, exemplary performer, space compromises, all the things that are so exciting for a dean and chairs and faculty to engage in, but are not easy. In doing that, continuing to value what's core to this institution, which is the undergraduate experience, and value all kinds of contributions that people make. So having some research stars shouldn't be a threat. It should be, we should embrace it because it's going to make us stronger. Similarly, having someone who's just incredible in the classroom doing just that with a limited time to do scholarship is also a huge contribution. That's the conversations we're going through now. The Vice President for Research and Jim and I are always trying to cobble together some funding to support a lab remodel or a space request, and they're not easy, but I'm sure you're doing the same thing.
I just want to say I am really proud of this college over the time that I've been here. When President Hager asked us to increase enrollments, increase baccalaureate degree graduates, we stepped up and we did it. And you know, I think that spirit of let's figure out a way to do it is really important, and I am really proud to be part of this college because of that atmosphere and that ideal that you all have, and it makes it a whole lot more fun to do what I'm doing. And so thank you for doing what you do. I think we're one of the colleges that we don't bitch and moan so much about when we're asked to do something. We just figure out a way to do it and get it done and do it well. And I think, and I'm really proud of that, and I'm really proud to say that I don't hear a lot of whining when people are asked to expand or try something different or innovate. We're all about, well, yeah, let's figure out how to do it, and that I'm really proud of that. So thank you.
And Jim and I again apologize that we didn't get this done at the end of the last semester, but I'm really glad we did today. Your comments were very thoughtful, and I think that from my perspective, you have that understanding of that there's no easy or perfect solution here, and but we do need to forge ahead with strong vision and a setting that allows both the dean of the college and whoever is the oversight of nursing, whatever that title is, to thrive and to move forward. So we'll look at the titling. We'll look at the structure. We will keep pushing on space and think through some of these programmatic locations and maybe do some changing there that can strengthen the college.
After all this input and conversation, and yeah, there is no perfect solution, but we do need to keep going, obviously. And I don't know if I speak for anyone else, but it's tough to be without a structure. Some of us really enjoy having a structure and know what's ahead. Can you, I don't know who, but can you give us a sense of when's the announcement? You know, when are you gonna just tell us what the heck? Seriously, I'll do whatever.
Timing's important, because we have to do that before we place an ad.
Right.
So we have to make a tough decision on the structure, then the titling, and then get going.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be asking you, working with Deb, to create that vision that Jim and I can embrace, so that we can get the very strongest person. But what I don't want to do is put out an ad that doesn't reflect reality and have candidates come in and say, no, I don't think so. You know, there are other opportunities out there. And I don't know who said it at the beginning, but I do think that there is a shrinking pool of people who want to take on these challenges administratively. It's not easy, and there are other things. You know, next best alternative is usually better.
So, 2 weeks, 6 months?
She wants structure. I think what we agreed to, opening up the process for another week for people who couldn't participate to have input. And so that would be at the end of next week. And then I would say give us to the end of the month, early March, and we will have the conversations that we need to have and move forward with one of these options. And it may, it sounds like there were changes that were made 8 years ago or so nothing we do is in stone, of course, but we'll try to do the best we can for the college to move forward at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Hi, Barbara Tomlinson from nursing. I'd like to also say thank you very much for bringing us together, because you are open, you all are open, ready to discuss and to listen. And I am very proud as well of the faculty who got so many answers here today, and very willing to sit, to listen, to share our ideas, and for you all, for us to hear everyone's voice. There are institutions that are trying to get to this place, get to this circumstance. I know that. There are other places that you sit, you listen, you walk out, because no one asks you. So thank you very much for being that inviting for all of us.
Well, we'll definitely have some thinking to do and some discussion and research to do. So I really thank you for your input, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.